John Boehner was giving a speech at the conservative think tank, the American Enterprise Institute, and during the question and answer segment of the event, somebody asked him what he thinks about expanding the earned income tax credit. Now, for those of you who don't know, that's basically like asking, what do you think about cutting taxes for the poor and the middle class? Which, by the way, I'm totally in favor of. I've never met a poor or middle class tax cut that I didn't like. I love the idea of low taxes if it's on the middle class and the poor. Okay? But here was John Boehner's response. He's a Republican, right? So he's definitely going to be in favor. He's going to talk about it in glowing terms. Quote, "This idea that has been born maybe out of the economy over the last couple of years that, I really don't have to work. I don't really want to do this. I think I'd rather just sit around. This is a very sick idea for our country. In the past, if you wanted something, you worked for it. Trust me, I did it all." I've never heard a more off-base response in my entire life. So the question is, hey, you want to cut taxes for the poor and the middle class? And the answer is, lazy assholes don't work anymore. They just sit around, unemployed. Dicks, we hate you. Get a job. Get a job. That doesn't make sense in so many ways. So first of all, the idea that if somebody's not working, that they're lazy. If somebody got fired, if somebody's unemployed. The unemployment rate in the U.S. right now is 6.1%. So this belief that there are so many Americans that are lazy and just don't want to work, well, at most it would be 6.1% of the country. But it's not even that, because what percentage of the people that are unemployed are looking for work nonstop and are trying to make a better life for themselves and their families and trying to pay the bills and just trying to do right by the system and for themselves and everybody they love? What is it? 95% of those people? So what are we looking at? Worst case scenario, maybe 5%, 1% of people are, saying, fuck it, I'm going to check out of the system. And actually, you know what? We can come up with a pretty good idea as to what percentage of the population is lazy and say, fuck it, I don't want to work, and I'm going to just leech off the government. Because all you have to do is look at the fraud rates for the different social safety net programs. So you know how conservatives always mock it like, welfare recipients, they're all lazy. Food stamp recipients, all lazy. Well, that's funny because the USDA did a study of the food stamp program, or SNAP as it's now called, and they found that only 1% of SNAP is fraud or waste. So that means of all the people taking it, 99% just legitimately need it. They've hit a rough patch in their life, and that it helps them. Only 1% is taking it unjustly. So what does John Boehner want to do? I mean, you're to tell me that the people who are unemployed and who are struggling and who are using social safety net programs, you're just going to mock them? You're just going to, you're all lazy, even though 99% of you aren't lazy, but you're all lazy. And also, these programs, most of them have time restrictions. So like unemployment, for example, you can only be on it for a certain amount of time before you're done. So again, this idea that you're creating a culture of dependence, it's bogus, because you can't even be dependent on something if it's going to be taken away at some point, right? I mean, how are you going to be dependent on something for, what are you going to do? Take a certain program for 8 years when you can't take it for more than 2? You can't do that, right? So it's totally backwards. And probably the biggest point to talk about is, dude, you're a Republican. I thought all the Republicans barked day in, day out about how you guys are the party of tax cuts. You guys are simply the party that wants to put more money in the wallets of the hardworking American people. Well, here you're asked a question if you want to do exactly that, and you say, no, people are lazy, work hard, do stuff. So you're violating what you say your own principles are, but that's the reality. It's not their principles. See, I've been one of the few people that's been screaming this for the longest time, that when the Republicans say they love tax cuts, they don't mean for you. Very clearly, they don't mean for you. They only mean for the rich. They only mean for the people on Wall Street, for the billionaires, for the corporations. I mean, they love corporate welfare, and they love tax breaks to people with yachts and Maseratis and Lamborghinis. They just don't want to give it to you. And John Boehner is clearly showing that right here.